I'm not. All right. So, yeah, so we'll get through this presentation here, and Adam, our architect with Integration Design Group, is here to do the presentation for us. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to ask those. It's beneficial for everybody in the group to hear what other people have to ask. Maybe it's a question that's on your mind. Also, when we're done here, if you'll join us downstairs for any other Q&A, if you wanted to ask one-on-one questions of Adam or anybody on the construction committee or father, we do have donuts and coffee. I guess cops are really experienced with getting donuts. So anyway. And I'll turn it over to Adam.
Okay, is this working? Can everybody hear me okay? My name is Adam Hermanson, parishioner at Immaculate Heart of Mary in North Glen, Colorado. I run a small design firm called Integration Design Group, and our specific mission is to help Catholic parishes think about the next best thing that they need to do with their facilities. It's been a real joy to be involved with your parish leadership, Father Mbala, and the committee members that have come together to think about what's needed here at St. John. And kind of that vision of the future, a lot of things that Father spoke to us about so eloquently today. The mission that we have to transform the world, flows out from our parishes, right? The living stones of all of the people of God that come together. We are called to transform the world, and we need spaces to come together, to pray, to worship, to be formed in the intellectual life, to learn the truths of the church, and then to carry those out into the world. I like to think about our parishes as places where the spiritual and corporal works of mercy flow out into the world, right? We're called to do all those things. What I want to share with you today is the fruit of the past 5 months or so of conversation and meeting with your parish leadership, the building committee, but also the work that was done before we even showed up, before us and our engineers showed up, because your team and the folks that are living and working in your parish, you all have done a lot of thinking about your buildings over the past several years. I want to touch on a few things. Many of you, hopefully all of you, had a chance to participate in the survey process that was done a few months back. That process identified some real key needs that weren't a surprise, I don't think, to anybody. Those needs being the drainage issues that we have to take care of in this project. Kind of the big spur for this project is the backup issues you've had in your kitchen, the sewer issues you've had in the parish hall, and then the site drainage. That's a real challenge because your site's so flat and a little bit landlocked in terms of the storm sewer. So some real logistics up front that this project has to take care of, but also safe environment. Making sure that our priests are protected, that we have the right protection for our children and those who work with our children. And so that part of the surveys really was identified by you all as a real key piece, that whatever we do as a part of this project, it needs to take into account all the safe environment requirements that are familiar to us and within the Archdiocese. But also, what are we going to do with the rectory building and classroom building right now? What's the best use of that structure? About a year ago, our team was out here with our structural engineer to do an assessment of it, say, is there any structural damage, or can we add on and use this existing building? And the building really is in good shape, despite some of the cosmetic stuff up front, with the porch kind of crumbling and some of the masonry work that needs to be taken care of if that was to be preserved. And so our proposal is to reuse almost all of that, except maybe the roof structure. But the building systems that you have in there, all the mold mitigation that you've done over the past years, most of the improvements that you've done in there over the past few years, but to really repurpose about half of it on the upstairs level as a parish office, which is a real need. A formal parish office that's easy to get to and connected to the church. So we'll look at some floor plans there that address the offices, the classrooms, and the rectory, and how we're proposing to connect those to this building. And lastly, you identified in your surveys beautification, that there are some things in your church building, in the sacred space here, that you would like to see addressed. That we can't do all of these other things without addressing the reason that everything else is here on this site is because of what happens on this altar, right? That's the reason everything else is here, and all the grace on this that you as a parish have to offer the world, to kind of tie back into Father's homily today, flows from the graces that come to us on the altar. So those are some of the key points that should be familiar to everyone. What we've been doing is sort of developing the floor plans, connecting them to those priorities that you as a parish have identified, and adjusting sort of what are the possibilities in terms of flow, in terms of size of spaces, needs for storage, needs for formation, needs for the parish office. and then connecting all of those so that they work together in a good, accessible site. Because there are some accessibility challenges, as you know, on your property right now. We've gone through several iterations of those. We've developed a 3D model of the building. We'll show you some of the fruit of that design work today. We've identified, for interviews, we've identified a general contractor to come on board as a partner to the parish in what we call pre-construction services, meaning they're not fully hired to do the project yet. They're brought on board for their logistics and scheduling and cost estimating services that help us really right-size the project to the budget so that you as a parish can be good stewards of what the Lord's put in your hands. And that contractor is TCC Construction. We worked with them out in Ray several years ago when we remodeled the old church building there after they built the new church, and the classrooms that they put in over there. And the committee had a really good conversation. We had 2 good candidates and a thoughtful process of selection. And so they're on board over the next several months to do cost estimating, logistics, scheduling, just kind of planning of what are the current challenges that we need to solve before we get a shovel into the ground. We rely on that expertise because it limits change orders and it limits exposure to the project, just knowing that we have a builder's eye on the drawings that we're doing. And that's kind of in a nutshell, the process we've been going through. The city coordination is going to be fairly simple on this project. We're not asking for any major variances or anything like that. And so we're sort of well within the regulations that the city's laid down, and we're going to be improving the site in a number of ways that the city will appreciate. And so the kind of critical benefits to the project, I want to walk through those as we're looking at the floor plans. So let's see how in focus that is. I'm going to be able to make it a little larger. This is your existing basement plan. So you have the 3 classrooms downstairs, the old restrooms, the utility space, the connection to the upper kitchen, and then the older kitchen here. The stairs that go down there, the window up, and the big parish hall with the 2 small restrooms in the corner. Everyone's pretty familiar with that. Thanks, Joe. The main level plan and the dashed areas are things that we're proposing to change. But the main level plan, you have the rectory rooms, the bedrooms upstairs, the restrooms, the elevator, the stair that goes down to connect the 2 buildings, the old confessionals back here in the back of the church, and then the connection with the stairs that go down from this little hallway back here right down into the kitchen. So a little bit of modification almost in all areas of the building. You can kind of see those darker dashed lines that indicate the demolition scope. Now back down to the basement, this is sort of the proposed plan. Let me step back a little bit so everybody can see, but I'll see if I laser over because they're fun to use. I don't get anybody in the eye with that. Let's see. Maybe not. Oh, maybe hard to see in the light, huh? Oh. So the parish hall is this pink area here, and it gets reduced slightly in size, but all new finishes, new ceiling, new flooring, new paint on the walls. This is a new storage space for tables and chairs, and then expanded restrooms, full accessible restrooms, 2 holes for the men, 2 holes for the women, a drinking fountain down there as well. We've got some cabinetry, kind of a information space, or like maybe drinks area and distribution down there, so a little bit of built-in cabinetry. And then the new doorway here that is able to have a full landing and then into the social hall. We're proposing to move the stair that's back behind the sacristy right now to this location here. So the big part of this project is infilling the space between the 2 buildings on the main level. And doing that allows us to sort of rethink how we're egressing, how we're exiting from the parish hall. So we come up into this space that I'll show you in just a second. We need 2 exits by code because we have so many people in here in terms of the occupant load. So we preserve those 2 exits. This is a little bit better than having to go through the kitchen and then out for life safety. It's a little bit better to have a direct access up and out. A new elevator is a key part of this overall project. Make sure you have a safe and consistently working elevator. sized for, at the very least, a large wheelchair and an attendant, somebody to accompany that person. The stairs going down we'll maintain, and then the classrooms will be remodeled, but generally the same size and scale, except for this hallway that we need to sort of cut through here because of the building code. Building code doesn't like us to exit multiple people through other rooms because you don't always know who's in there, what the furniture arrangement is, and how it could be blocked. So we're providing this hallway here, and that leads us to the exit stair in the corner. All of that exit stair is remodeled. We have these utility rooms that are remodeled as well. And then, this is sort of a bonus, because we're proposing to expand the existing rectory building out to the west. What we have here is another classroom with tall windows here that are kind of in a window well. So that's a sort of an extra classroom because we're already excavating down 4 or 5 feet there for foundation work. The committee said, let's go ahead and put this in our plan to add another large kind of multi-purpose room down in the basement. The kitchen areas will have some very minor remodel in the older portion of the kitchen just to make the serving line work a little bit better. We have a pantry that we gain, or a better pantry that we gain when we remove the stair that goes down there. But the existing commercial kitchen has only very minor work, and it's really more related to what's going on up above. The utility room remains the same except for some improvements to the sump system. We'll be pulling up the carpet in here to tie in the new plumbing under the slab, make sure that's all in good working order. Windows on the north side of the parish hall remain. The windows, those high windows on the south side of the parish hall, however, will get blocked up and go away. There's not a lot of value to those right now because they're kind of in that slot of space between your two buildings, but those will go away in this scheme. We'll add a little crawl space, so this area out front is actually in addition to the existing rectory building. I'll show you in a second. And that lines up the entire facade, the entire east facade of the church and the sort of parish center, if you will, parish office there. So that's the overview of the floor plan on the lower level as proposed. In the upper level, sort of opening up that narthex gathering space, the foyer that you have, removing, as I mentioned earlier, removing the old confessionals and providing a new confessional that's much larger, more generous, and more comfortable, but still offers both face-to-face and anonymous confession. And that would be actually right next to the final stained glass window over there in this location here. Sort of right where that courtyard space starts right now would be the new confessional. The new elevator we talked about, and then here's the connection between your existing narthex foyer space and a new ramp that brings you up to the level of the parish offices and some upstairs classrooms. So the darker red indicate parish office space, reception here, another staff member here, 1 or 2 staff in the private office here, the pastor's office here. So very accessible, whether you're coming in the doors here during the middle of the week or on a Sunday, come up here to get records, to register for the different things. Another key piece of this sort of front end remodel is a family restroom right outside the doors of the church here. So this is on the same level as the narthex. So right there, it's not very public, it's sort of a little bit around the corner, so it doesn't feel like it's too open to anyone who would be standing near the narthex. But just past the stairs there, we would open that up and have a family restroom there. Another family restroom would be on the level of the parish offices and these new classrooms here. A little sort of copy kitchenette space for catechists and religious ed nights when you're making copies and stacking flyers and handouts and things like that. And the parish office staff can use that as well. So a little sink and a copy center right there. And these classrooms that seat 12 comfortably, so they're nice small sized classrooms. And then we kind of draw a bright line here, which is where the rectory starts. So here's that addition I mentioned before, that's over that bonus room down in the basement. And this is an extension of the rectory. Basically, we take all those rectory spaces and push them out to the west, and we add on to that building here. This point right here is where the stairs, egress, sort of that escape stair from the basement, and you're out and you're safe in case of a fire or anything like that. And then the living space for the rectory has its own entrance off of a small back deck in a similar fashion to what it has now. But it also has a connection here that's always locked from the church side but the pastor can come right here into the sacristy and prepare for Mass. So there's a good connection to the church. And then the bedroom, the whole kitchen that's over there right now remains as it is. It's in great shape, it's almost brand new. So the kitchen remains, the plumbing area stays in the same locations with renovation to the bathroom. Laundry and such is over there as well. What we're showing here is an option, and I didn't bring a floor plan, but an option for some additional living space upstairs. Since we're building this all new, it'd be very easy to design that attic space as livable space. We have to clear that with the code official and the plan reviewer, because it's sort of an extra thing that we might have to fireproof in a certain way. But then in terms of a space that's going to get used all the time, this multi-purpose, very large classroom space here has direct access out to the parking on the west side and into the main circulation zone here. Some storage in this location, some plumbing on a counter in that space because it'll get used for a lot of different reasons. We anticipate it as a great bride's room or a place where RCIA maybe is excused to during the Easter season. It's connected very easily to the church through this door here. And we're bringing all that up to the same level so that it's connected on the church level. It's really easy to get to. Sacristy stays the same. We're looking at some modest modifications, but important ones in the church itself. We're proposing to give Joe and the music ministry a little bit more room up here instead of squeezing it all in there. So it's a little hard to see here, but expanding the platform here out a little bit just to give a smaller, small music group the ability to be there and not feel completely squeezed in, which involves the modification of this front pew, which gives us a couple wheelchair handicap spaces up front as well, which would be good. Probably the most significant pieces would be elevating the altar 2 more steps. So for good sight lines from the back of church and just to elevate the prominence of the altar a little bit. And then we're proposing behind the crucifix to have this as a stone finish. Just the most sort of noble material in the church is a backdrop for the sacrifice and for the crucifix. The committee has mentioned some of the stonework that's inside the newer church building over in Ray, which is really quite nice. We haven't gotten down to the details of exactly how that will look, but it gives it a little bit of hierarchy as you see the wood walls come together and then this stone tile or stacked stone or something like that behind the crucifix. So other than the windows back here, which you'll see in a second in the rendering, that kind of expand that cry room or calling area sort of function, make a little more transparency into the church when you walk through the door, the platform, and then the finishes behind the crucifix. Those are kind of the proposed changes inside the church. And there may be others as we go. I should tell you that where we are in the overall process is about 1/3 of the way through the design work, what we call schematic design. And we have 2 more phases of design development where that kind of flesh that out, and then the final construction documents, the technical drawings. So we're just about 1/3 of the way through, and so hopefully in our conversation today and going forward, there's a lot of good back and forth about things that are important to you or things you may be not seeing yet in the floor plan. It's not at all fixed, it's not at all final, we've got plenty of work to do going forward. This is what it could look like on the front. So obviously this is our proposed addition with the ramp on the inside of it. Just on the inside there would be that ramp that connects the parish office to the level of the narthex. We think it's important to get this roof line on the new addition to match the roof line of the church, to really integrate the 2 buildings into one campus. Right now it feels very separate, but we did not want to challenge at all the hierarchy that this is the most important building. So we're taking some of the window language, obviously the brickwork, and then the roof pitch to make it more unified, but still clearly the church is the most important. Oops. So I wanted to share with you a little bit of a video sort of walkthrough. One second. And so this is still, as I mentioned, we're still rather at the beginning of the design process. I'll slide it up here just a little bit so we don't lose too much of the image. Make it a little higher so that everybody can see it. And so again, the modest improvements in the church. This is kind of just a placeholder for what might sort of work with your canopy and your baldacchino up here, and then really kind of marking that out as the most celebrated space of the church. And then we're going to turn to the left and look at the windows that are going to replace the old confessionals there, and then we'll go up the ramp into the parish offices. So here you can see the door to the confessional here, which of course is back on that side of the church. And then how open we're imagining the church to feel connected to the narthex visually, and having speakers out there for sound, so that if a dad or mom is calming a little one, they're still participating in the Mass. On the left you see the double doors at the tower right now, and the new ramp. Just to the right edge here, you'll see a door, and that's the new restroom that's planned there. And then this is familiar, it's the stairs that go down in the elevator area. This is a picture of my wife taking a call on her cell phone there. She's probably calling me. You're late for religious ed. Where are the kids? But a nice light-filled space. You know, the east light comes in through those tall windows. Some artwork on these walls, it's a real opportunity. This is just kind of a view down back towards the narthex and the entry there. We'll have a tall ceiling in this space. It's easy to do. Obviously some signage along the way, whether it's here or here. So you can start to get a glimpse of the receptionist there. So this is the parish office area, pastor's office on the left. Private office here for counseling or conversations, or it might be one or two staff members, reception desk to the right. And then you're starting to look down towards that little coffee break area and copier, and then classroom spaces. We're maintaining about half the walls in the existing rectory building right now. So the restroom is on the right here. This door here is the restroom. We haven't put in your stained glass windows into the 3D model, but this is actually one of the stained glass windows into the church. So now we're kind of approaching that space that's infilled between the two buildings. And you'll see the stair that comes up from the social hall down below. So this is what we're proposing that goes, if you went to look down there, you kind of see the door down there. So it kind of brings you up into the circulation space. You see a little bit of daylight in that door out there. That's the multi-purpose room at the end of the hallway. And on the right is the door to the church. So this sits right on top of your existing kitchen. Through the magic of digital materials, we're going to go right through this door. A little startling. We haven't talked to the father about the style of couches that he wants yet. There you see the other stair that could go up. And this is the existing building and the existing improvements that you have there in the rectory through that opening. So the sacristy is straight ahead, church door, and then down into the social hall. So we'll have some lights in the ceiling that will illuminate the stained glass and approximate daylight so that the church still feels very balanced in terms of the lighting. So it's familiar to see the drop soffit around the edge, the high windows. This is our new storage room back here. This is a little hallway that goes to the restrooms, new doors to the stairs and elevator, and there's that countertop I mentioned earlier. We didn't do this walkthrough through the classroom spaces, but we're proposing to take out the door on that landing and just leave it connected and open. These are the doors that are underneath the tower right now, and the existing north deck space. So we're excited about the vision. It's an ambitious vision. You have been really good stewards of your resources over the past several years, and I'm not the one to talk about that, just appreciate that, that your parish leadership has been conservative and exercising really good stewardship. The process ahead is to meet with the general contractor this coming week to understand what the cost is for this whole vision. The nice thing is that we've designed it in a way that's scalable. You know, depending on what the funds are that are available, the bonus room in the basement maybe doesn't get finished out at all. The roof structure has some scalability to it. We can do it a version A, B, or C. The improvements in the church could be deferred, or maybe they're like a reach goal within your capital campaign. We always know that these projects kind of have a wish list, a lot of things we'd like to do, and that depends on your generosity and your stewardship in the upcoming months as you look at these images, as you talk about amongst your families, amongst yourselves. We've got to go down to the Archdiocese when we get the numbers from the general contractor and present the project to them with your parish leadership, and they'll give us a thumbs up and say, keep going, keep going. But they are kind of a gatekeeper in the process too, and so you'll probably hear about that a little bit from your parish leadership when that happens, and when the approval from the Archdiocese to keep going is received. Questions?
How much of this wall and gap on the first side of it, is that going to move out, join the other building, or going to do something? What kind of usage are we going to use for that gap?
Great question. The question is, what kind of usage are we going to have for the space between the two buildings?
Adam, before you explain that real quick, would it be all right if they pass out the comment cards now?
Great. Yeah. So we have a little comment card that we want to get your comments as well, because we don't have time for every question in the Q&A. But so please feel free to jot down. Please feel free to jot down some comments for us.
Yeah, so Mark and Destiny are handing those out right now. So as much participation as we can get on that would be great. The more input, the better. But it's got English on one side, Spanish on the other, if you prefer, and they've also got pens for you, so you can fill that out as well.
So the question is, what fills in the space between the two buildings? And really that space is shown right here. So this wall doesn't actually move. The church will stay this shape, but the space right beyond it becomes a circulation area. So the stairs that go down to the parish hall and the ramp that takes you down from the parish office level down to the multi-purpose level of the church, that all happens in this space here. In the gap, right. Yeah. Yes, it'll be built. I mean, that's one of the key things, the key strategies here is to put a new roof and a new infill over the area that causes you the most frustration in terms of drainage and water damage and backup and all of that, is getting water out of that space between the two buildings. So that's going to be completely a new roof over the top of it. That allows us to move the water out to the south side of the building through that new chase that you built